Things are happening with people that we know and that are close to us, and that is shocking.
Makes you wonder, is there a safe place?
Hi, welcome to Talking News. Hi, I'm the host, Debbie. It's been over 7 weeks and they still haven't found her. She's in a murder, and one thing I do is I don't really care about these cases.
Please help us locate these missing loved ones. Hi guys, welcome to Chasing a Murderer. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit that notification bell, guys, for notification updates and things like that. So anyways, we're going over the CASEI Jones case. So we're going to go over every detail I could come up with. In fact, except for the ones we cannot share. That could be, it could hurt their case. We don't want to do that. I have talked to Brandy Lynn, which is CASEI's sister. I've talking a little bit to Nikki Jones, not too much, but a little bit. I don't want to bug them too much, guys, because they're going through a tragedy. So let's go ahead and get to the story because it's pretty long this time. And my phone, I do everything on my phone right now. I'm trying to get set up on my computer. Just haven't been able to get it done yet. I can't get the AdSense to send a verification and stuff, so it's been a pain. Now, guys, if you're not familiar with this case, we're going to go through pretty much everything this time, so I'm not going to refer you to an old video unless you want to see, how it went about as we uncovered it, what it was like, what we didn't know compared to what we know now. So where I want to start out at is at the Mount Dora Veterinarian Clinic Hospital. And the only reason I'm mentioning these guys is because they've already gone public to a few news stations. So I want to remind you guys, we do have people working at our house, so I am outside again. So Mount Dora is a city in Central Florida. It's known for its antique shops, their festivals, and downtown they have lots of museums, and they have modern furniture displays. They have the classic car shows, things like this. It sounds like a great place. Like always, Florida always has a bunch of people moving from all over the United States, including the world, to move to the South and Central Florida areas. But before we go there, I want to mention that Sarah Jones and Michael Jones are from Vermont, some small town in Vermont, and they had actually gotten married. I'm hearing a rumor of June 2011, and Mike Jones and Sarah Jones had 3 children together. I'm not going to talk much about the children. Now, according to friends of CASEI's, they divorced in 2017. And that's where our story begins. Okay, so Sarah Jones and Michael Jones and their 3 children moved to Central Florida, where they start working at a veterinarian hospital called Mount Dora Veterinarian Hospital. The owners of this hospital were Deporte, so it was a husband and wife. They run this veterinarian clinic, and they had actually, let me go back over this, so they hired Sarah Jones, Mike Jones, and also Cassie Bowers at the time. The Deportes say that Mike was a very hard-working vet technician. So, and here's a quote he had to say in the article, quote, "He was the guy. He'd seen an old lady pull up with her animal. He would run out to her car and help her out. And he would help her in with the animal. And everyone loved Mike." End quote. Delporte says that they hired him, but he became much more than an employee. Quote, "He was our best friend. I considered him a little brother. Our children even called him Uncle Mike. He was great around his own kids and our kids," end quote. Mike worked there for a few years, and the Delaportes say that Mike's sparkling image began to fade. I'm going to be switching environments on you guys. I apologize. So they say, his sparkling image began to fade. Mike and his wife at the time were a work team with Casey Bowers. So Mike started a relationship with Cassie, but things began to change. Mike began telling lies, and he told his bosses, quote, "He told us his mother died and that she was an alcoholic and that she went out one night in a snowstorm and froze to death in a ditch. And he lived that lie for many months," end quote. That's according to the wife, CASEI Delaporte. And well, guess what? Mike started getting into some troubles, and the Delaportes tried to help him out, but he just didn't seem to want that help. So in 2015, Michael Jones was arrested on suspicion of armed burglary and grand theft. According to police, he had broken into the animal hospital and stole money, medications, and possibly even a gun. But before we can move on to our next step, I need to let you know that Michael did disappear for a period of time. He went down to Mexico. He was a mess. At some point, CASEI Jones, his girlfriend was at the time, Jones had threatened Cassie's ex-husband, Richard Bowers, at one point during a child visitation. And according to court records, it showed that Mike had possession of a small firearm in the recent past. That gun is believed to have been stolen from the veterinarian clinic that he used to work at. And the final thing that Delaporte had to say about Mike was, quote, "He found out who you wanted him to be, and he was that person to you. So that's his way of luring you in," end quote. There come a point where the Delaportes had to part with Michael Jones, but they never really seen him as that guy that can murder his own family. According to a few records, they show that he was in the Navy from 2000 to 2005, but at the beginning of the story, we heard that he was booted out during boot camp. Well, it turns out that there's a possibility that he was booted out of the Navy for mental problems, but in Orange County, a veteran court allows veterans under some circumstances to go through special programs to avoid prosecution and time behind bars. That's another record that we found. So what it says here is last year a chief judge signed an order not allowing the release of those records, which means that at this point the public cannot see how it was handled, any of the cases of Jones, and that's according to WFTV 9. Anyways, back to the fact that Michael Jones might have been kicked out of the Navy for having mental problems or issues. This is not something that's new. I mean, this is, there's a lot of cases we can come and talk about where we find out that they have, where they murdered somebody and their background, they were in the military. So AJ, in the McKenzie case, if you remember it, he was also in the Army for a short period of time, was supposedly, kicked out for mental problems. So you have so many cases where men or women are in the military and they have these mental problems and they end up not doing great things in the future. And the signs are all there, but the military isn't preventing it. You know, they're not getting them the help they need. So back to Mike Jones. Right now we're hearing that there's a possibility that he was kicked out of the military because he just was having mental struggles. Now, sometime after he come back from Mexico and got in all that trouble, he married Cassie Bowers. They got married Halloween 2017, and she was pregnant with McCallie at the time. And shortly after, they had Ayanna. From what we know at this time, right now, Michael Jones didn't have a lot to do with Sarah Jones once he married CASEI Jones. And so it was an on and off again type of relationship. And CASEI and Sarah Jones had met a few times. And even Sarah Jones' kids had stayed a short period with CASEI and Mike, but there was no signs of violence at the time between any of them. It turns out that CASEI and Sarah Jones did not like each other, not a little bit. Now, CASEI Jones and Mike seem to have a pretty quiet 2 years together. Their family said, you know, they only had a few things to say about the 38-year-old Michael Jones, and that was they did see some times where he did look like he could get kind of aggressive. And I'm going to run this short clip of one of CASEI Jones' family members talking about Michael.
There's been many times that family members had begged CASEI to leave him and move back up here with family, but my sister was in love.
Family members describe Jones as a person who could become violent even toward his own wife, CASEI.
We family members have seen violent and obsessive and I would say very angry acts toward CASEI and sometimes even her boys.
But we watched the videos of this family on CASEI Jones' YouTube page, and they seem to have, you know, a pretty good family. Everything's appeared to be perfect, but you know, what's happening behind closed doors can be hard to see. So after CASEI Jones had Ayanna, their second daughter, she ended up hurting her back somehow, according to her mother, and she ended up staying home and not supporting. What we're hearing from the mom is that she was kind of supporting Michael Jones. So now Michael Jones is kind of pulling the weight of the finances, and that is rumor right now. We cannot confirm that, but that's what we're hearing. So at some point things, I guess, started to go downhill with the couple, is what we're hearing, but we're not seeing that on the Facebook or anything like that. What happens next is Sarah Jones posts April 3rd that she is moving from Vermont back to Jacksonville, Florida, and she's looking for a job. Also, about in that time frame, CASEI and Mike moved from Leesburg to Summerfield from a house that she owns to a mobile home. There's a few posts on Facebook from CASEI Jones, but on June 18th through 20th, Sarah Jones is selling some furniture, getting ready to move to Florida. Then we see that Sarah Jones moves to Jacksonville, Florida, if I can spit it out, early July. It's at this point that family members are starting to not hear from CASEI Jones like they're used to hearing from her. July 9th, Sarah Jones is at the beach. She posts pictures of her kids there. Somewhere close to that date, neighbors are saying that Mike and CASEI are having an argument. I'm sorry guys, I forgot to mention that we're hearing that broken window that was in the back of the van, the white van involved with this case, was done at Nikki Jones' house. She says that he backed into a branch and he broke the window out. There were some rumors going around about that, and I don't think they're correct. So July 11th, Sarah Jones and Mike are texting back and forth. July 14th at about 12:41 in the afternoon, Mike texts that he's at Walmart. We also find out there is Hurricane Dorian heading their way. And so a lot of people were preparing for that about that time. Now, according to Sarah Jones, the first 2 weeks of September, Mike Jones was staying with her on and off. Now, I'm going to kind of go out of order on this timeline. We'll kind of go back and forth, because what I want to do is tell you guys exactly what happened, and then we'll kind of go over what happened in between the lines. Just remember, guys, that this is still kind of a new case. We don't have all the information completely accurate. We won't have all that information completely accurate until we see affidavits and, you know, the court and trial come along. So the boy's birthday come along for CASEI Jones, and CASEI Jones really hasn't had anything, you know, special going on for their birthdays like they expect. Not only that, Michael Jones, according to Nikki Jones, she's posting this public now. I wasn't going to share this, but she did tell the public, so I can share it. She did have the two girls for a short period of time at the end of July. She said Mike ended up picking them up, but she didn't see the boys and she didn't see CASEI. CASEI Jones family started to get suspicious, and so September 14th rolls along. We're not certain if it is family or the neighbor that kind of raise awareness that something isn't right with, you know, nobody's seen CASEI Jones. Regardless, somebody calls in, and we believe it is Nikki Jones, that's asked the police to go out to CASEI Jones' mobile home and do a wellness check. Now, one thing I do want to mention is Ryan, which is Michael Jones' brother, was one of the last people to hear from CASEI Jones. According to Ryan, he heard from CASEI Jones on the 8th, which was a few days before the 10th, is what he said. And this is according to Massacre Talk. They did an interview with him, and he said that CASEI Jones had messaged him around July 8th, but he wasn't able to get back to her until July 10th because he has a busy life. And this is what he said. She had messaged me actually a few days prior about some problems her and Michael were having, and I hadn't got back to her, and then so I had gotten back to her July 10th. Ryan says he wrote back to her, said, "Sorry, I hadn't got back to you, but," and he had been really busy basically. So according to Ryan, July 10th, CASEI went on to tell Ryan that Michael left his phone unlocked. And so she picked up the phone and looked in the open messenger and read a message. And that text was from what was named the best friend Joe in Vermont. According to Ryan, it basically said Mike told Joe, July 10th, "I plan on moving back to Vermont to work with you because I can't take it anymore." A lot of people suspect that this best friend Joe is probably Sarah Jones, but we don't know for sure right now. Remember, Sarah Jones had just moved to Jacksonville from Vermont. A lot of people who lie all the time, like if, for instance, the nurse and the Kelsey Bear thing, they have code talk. She had code talk with her friends if you go back and, look over the case, you'll find out they had code talk when they lied and were, helping each other out or manipulating. But anyways, Ryan really doesn't have exact times, like clock times or time periods as to when he's talking. He thinks I think he believes, let me look here. Yeah, I think he thinks it was in the early afternoon. But what Ryan is saying is he really didn't even know any of these people. In fact, he hadn't talked to Michael Jones in years and years. But on September 15th, Ryan was contacted to let him know that, the police were worried about the whereabouts of CASEI Jones. I'm sorry, I keep calling her Cassie. So Ryan actually texted Sarah Jones and asked Sarah if she had seen Casey and Mike. According to Ryan, he said she responds and says, quote, "I seen them all Friday, including Michael, and they were all fine," end quote. I'm not certain exactly what time, though. I can't get the timestamps. He also said that he texted her back, and one of her responses was, quote, "I can't talk right now, Ryan. I had the kids in the ocean. We're at the beach," end quote. So this is the same day that they actually find Michael Jones. If you remember when all this come out, he had wrecked his van or gotten an accident in Georgia. So, according to this article, Michael Jones was arrested after he was involved in a vehicle crash at 7:04 p.m. Sunday on US 301 in Hickox, Georgia, which is in between Waycross and Brunswick. So, Brantley County deputies responded and made contact with Jones. So the police said that while they were speaking to the drivers, deputies smelled a foul odor, and they said Mr. Jones stated to a deputy that "you may want to put me in handcuffs because there was a dead body in the vehicle." So at this point, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and their investigators were called out to the scene. And they did confirm, pretty much that they did find a body in the van. And it wasn't until later that they actually confirmed that it was CASEI Jones' body that they found in the van. Michael Jones also agreed to lead officers to the 4 bodies that he had dumped off in a wooded area. And those bodies were suspected to be CASEI Jones' children. And this is the area of US 301 and Charlton County near Folkestone, Georgia. So the Brantley County Sheriff's Office released a few more things, but I won't be able to go over that right now. Now, what we did hear from a few interviews between Sarah and Ryan, there was a lot of texting going on September 14th and September 15th between family members, Sarah Jones, and detectives. But it's very hard to get those texts and say that they're very reliable. Because according to Ryan, some of those texts he believes Mike typed, and Sarah Jones also says the same thing. But it just doesn't make sense. If you have time to go through all that and just look at it and listen to what they're saying, it doesn't make sense. Because in her interview, it just seems that one of the interviews that Ryan's in, he says that Sarah Jones says, "I can't talk right now, Ryan. I had the kids in the ocean. We're at the beach." But does Michael Jones have time to be at the beach because according to Sarah, she's at the store. That's what she tells detectives. So I know there's quite a big time in the day, but we're fixing to go over what Sarah said she did September 15th. And you'll see it just really doesn't make sense. So according to Sarah, what happened was September 14th, she was working with Uber until 12 midnight. At 4 a.m., she gets a phone call from detectives. She wakes Mike up, asks him what's it about, and he claims it has to do with the trailer. Now, she says at somewhere that she woke, I think it was about 8 a.m. that morning, she talks to the detective, then she goes to the store. She leaves the kids with Michael. She has been talking to Ryan. She didn't say that, but we know through text that she's talking to Ryan as well. So she's more than aware that CASEI and the children are missing at this point. She says she talks to the detectives again at the store. Now, we're not sure what's going on with this, but it doesn't sound right. We don't know if detectives are advising her to go somewhere to talk. Probably that's what it was. Or if she's just being a little deceptive. We don't know. So, but the point is, she did talk to detectives at the store. But what concerns you is she writes Ryan and tells Ryan that she's at the beach and that she had seen CASEI and the children Friday with Michael, and they were all fine. We also see her saying that she was with Michael for on and off for 2 weeks at the beginning of September, and he seemed to be fine. So it's really hard to tell right now what's really going on with this story. It's hard to like somebody when you realize a marriage is tearing apart, and it has to do with a new person in the picture. Not to mention that true crime is kind of really popular right now, so you hear a lot of stories where the mistresses pretty much seem to have a lot to do with the reason and the motive as to why the person they're seeing kills off their whole entire family. So maybe Sarah cannot talk right now, but you can bet right now we're still waiting on results, tests, information like GPS information, phone information, and DNA to come back. And so when all that is shared with us, we'll be able to put this together a lot. Well, it'd be clear what was really going on. Did CASEI and her family get along real well? I don't think they did, but there's a lot of families that have these issues. So it doesn't mean they didn't love CASEI and those children. Now guys, it took me 3 days to put this together, so please make sure that you show support if you like this channel and you like my uploads and my stories. I know one thing, after I finish this, I'm taking a bit of a break unless something big comes out. Now, I'm seeing a lot of those group pages for CASEI, and they're kind of putting things out there that I feel, this is my opinion, should not be out there, especially since the mother's not here and her children to defend themselves. Now, I plan on doing an interview with Brandy Lynn, which is CASEI's sister, which I will try to do this weekend. Okay guys, so this is on my phone. I have to really, you can tell I'm talking faster. I'm trying to shove it all in because we're at our limit. So what I want to do is say, guys, thank you so much for watching. You know I love you guys. And most of all, thanks for caring. See you soon. Bye-bye.